mai, haere mai. Welcome to the Maxim Institute podcast. My name is Jason Heel. I'm the Communications Manager at Maxim Institute, and this is our weekly short-form podcast. These podcasts are released in tandem with our weekly column and are a chance for you to hear in-depth from the column's author about some of the thinking that went into producing their final piece. Today we talk to Maxim researcher Alapasita Pomelile about her recent column. Ala, welcome to the podcast this week.
Well, thanks, Jason. Always a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Hey, your article this week, Time to Stop Dropping the Ball on Education. You open with this awesome quote from G.K. Chesterton. He talks about education as simply the soul of a society as it passes from one generation to another. Now, that's a beautiful quote, kind of encompasses, I guess, what we hope or imagine education to be. Why did you start with that quote? Because looking around and you focus on the NCEA pilot program results, you kind of wonder what's the state of the soul of our society. So, just maybe expand on that for us.
Sure. I thought it kind of summed up well, just the state of education affairs. And education in some ways in various societies is its lifeline, as a nation's lifeline, if you think of what it leads to, how it equips people and trains, but also not just the vocational part of things, but in terms of helping to form and shape people, education does that. So if we sort of look at the state of education today, we're not seeing, it's a grim picture, essentially. It isn't something to be passed on, in my opinion, and it's something that needs our attention. The word crisis has been thrown around quite a bit in the past 2 to 3 years in light of the pandemic, and rightfully so, but I think what it hasn't been thrown towards is the state of education. And so you mentioned the pilot, which I talk a little bit about in the column. This pilot is looking at new mandatory literacy and numeracy standards, which year 11 and actually year 9 to 13 students will need to have in order to have NCEA.
That's high school students,
right? Secondary school students. So this pilot showed that a third of students didn't do the writing component well. Only just over 50% achieved the numeracy standard. So yes, it's a pilot, but it is pretty indicative. Yeah,
it paints a pretty grim picture of where our education system is at. I suppose a lot of people in commenting on this will focus on those negative results and say this is a real problem. We love to pile on, and criticize and critique. But if we were going to offer maybe some solutions going forward, what would you suggest? I mean, you say that in the column, answering some questions raises more questions. So I guess what are the deeper questions that we need to answer that might help come towards a solution?
Yeah, absolutely. Over the weekend I heard the phrase never waste a good crisis. And great. So I feel like that's quite fitting in terms of looking forward in light of education, our education woes. One area that I talk about particularly is our teacher education. So it matters who we put in front of our school children in the sense of how we resourcing them, how we equipping them, but also how we shaping and forming them. And so we know that teacher education sits within our universities, formerly Teachers College, but they'd been absorbed over the years. So it matters what is happening with the pipeline of our teachers. And also we know that COVID brought 2 to 3 years of disrupted learning, mislearning in some contexts, and we just don't know what the full impact of that, because it's still unfolding, and so we don't know where teachers are having to catch up students, and then do we know that teachers are getting professional development. So teachers are probably one feasible area that we can focus on bettering.
So the way that we train them, and the way that we support them post-training and while they're on the job.
I mean, essentially, we need to figure out, okay, well, they're the ones in front of our school children. Are they equipped with the tools and the resources to teach well? To essentially help change these statistics as well. Children are still children, and they need adults leading the charge, and teachers are adults in some ways. So we need to make sure that they're in the best position. We need to set them up to win, essentially.
And so one of the things that you and I have talked about is a national standard of some sort. Can you kind of tease that out for us?
Yes. In terms of teacher training, because it's left to tertiary institutions, There are certain things that they must adhere to in terms of a criteria of their teacher training, but there's sort of no national standard of all teachers need to demonstrate A, B, C.
Yeah.
So there needs to be sort of some coherence across teacher education, and more so, I would say, even as far as across our education sector.
In terms of delivery of education?
Yeah. Currently, we work in silos. Like, we've got early learning here, we've got primary, and intermediate, and then we've got secondary, and they're not talking to each other in terms of teachers as well. So that in terms of a national standard, one, there needs to be coherence across how we train our teachers, and then also coherence around how we track a young person or a child's learning right from year 0 to the compulsory age, which is about year 11, year 12. So there isn't any coherence across that. It's sort of just like you pick up where they left off and then you just do your best, which isn't the best right now. If this pilot's showing us that. So we need to bring in all parties talking to each other. And teachers, we begin with teachers. Yes.
Great. Oh, well, great thoughts, Ala. Awesome. And I'm sure some great fixes if people listen. Take the time to listen.
Yes, we need to pass on good things onto our young people and set them up to win.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being with us.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
And now let's hear from Ala as she reads her column.
G.K. Chesterton described education as simply the soul of a society as it passes from one generation to another. Our current education system makes one wonder about the state of our societal soul as future generations inherit it. The latest results from a pilot of changes to incoming NCEA literacy and numeracy standards found that 34% of students achieved the writing assessment, 64% passed the reading standard, and 56% achieved the numeracy standards. Dig a little deeper, and you'll find that only 2% of Decile 1 students passed the writing assessment, with 15% of Decile 1 to 2 students passing literacy and numeracy assessments. The Post-Primary Teachers Association, also known as the PPTA, stated that teachers and students need more time to apply the changes required for learning and teaching the new NCEA standards. Whilst unopposed to the incoming wave of NCEA changes, the PPTA are asking for more help and support for teachers in the implementation process. These unsurprising statistics are, unfortunately, a snapshot of the dire state of our compulsory schooling system. We're looking at a generation of learners failing the basic literacy and numeracy standards needed to participate and function in society. If that isn't challenging enough, our education sector is also facing 3 years of disrupted learning, the impacts of which are still unfolding. Perhaps it's time to have honest and uncomfortable conversations about the state of New Zealand education. To use a sporting phrase, where are we dropping the ball with our literacy and numeracy woes? Answering this only raises more questions. Could it be how we're teaching these subjects? Are our teachers using evidence-based approaches for teaching foundational literacy and numeracy skills? Are we providing practical professional learning development opportunities for teachers? What resources are used to support teachers and students during seismic curriculum changes? Do we need broader systemic changes like national monitoring systems that track a child's progress in their foundational years of learning, so from year 0 to year 8? Times of crisis bring clarity and opportunity. It is as clear as daylight that our education system is facing a literacy and numeracy crisis. Herein lies a chance to focus on troubleshooting possible problematic areas, like whom we place in front of our school children. Dwight D. Eisenhower noted, teachers need our active support and encouragement. They are doing one of the most necessary and exacting jobs in the land. They are developing our most precious national resource, our children, our future citizens. Our educators did a phenomenal job in ensuring learning continued amidst pandemic disruptions. In our COVID-19 recovery efforts, the Ministry of Education, schools, the Teachers' Council, and others alike need to seriously consider how we can equip our teachers to teach well in today's climate. We need current resources and professional development training provided by MOE in schools aligned with evidence-based practices. It's time to review how we train our teachers and ensure our teaching programs are driven by the science of teaching and learning rather than ideology.
Thanks for listening to the Maxim Institute podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us and keep up with the rest of our research and analysis of politics and policy in New Zealand, you can sign up on the homepage of our website to get our monthly forum email and invitations to future Maxim Institute events. You can search and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. From the team at Maxim, mā te wā. Goodbye for now.